so much for inviting me to worship with you. I am so delighted to be preaching from the pulpit that really stands as a symbol of our relationship between Temple Isaiah and this wonderful church. And we at Temple Isaiah are so looking forward to celebrating with you your Jubilee year. And we wish you an early congratulations, or as we say, an early Mazel Tov. The title of my sermon today is The Waters of Bethlehem. King David is, in my opinion, one of the most romantic figures in all of literature. He was a poet, a warrior, a friend, a father, a sinner, and above all, a very human being. Near the end of the book of 2 Samuel, there is a brief vignette from the life of David, and I think that it is a love story, and that it contains a sensitive definition of what love is. David is an older man now, and he's forced to go out to war once more against his old enemies, the Philistines. He gathers his soldiers together as the enemy has encamped at Bethlehem, which has been King David's childhood home. And David looks around across the enemy lines at his childhood city, far off in the distance, and he says to himself with a sigh, "Oh, if only I could drink once more from the waters of Bethlehem." Now there are 3 soldiers standing nearby who overhear the king, and they decide to answer his wish. So at great risk, they cross behind the enemy lines and bring back a pitcher of water from the well of Bethlehem. But King David does not drink it. Instead, he says, "How can I drink water that has been brought back to me at such a risk, at such a price?" And he pours it out on the ground as a libation for the Lord. And the story ends. So what does this story mean? What was so special about the waters of Bethlehem? If David had wanted to drink, was there not some water closer by? And if he had wanted that water so badly, why did he pour it out on the ground? I would like to suggest to you the way in which I believe that this passage should be understood. I think that King David was not really asking for water. He was talking to himself. And since he was a poet, he spoke in poetic language. And when he said, "Oh, if only I could drink again from the waters of Bethlehem," what he really meant was not the water, but the place of his childhood. As he looked out over the distant city, surrounded by his enemies, he yearned for his childhood days in Bethlehem, because there he had been happy. There he had been loved. He looked back to that place of his childhood, and he said to himself, "Those were the good old days, the days of my innocence. I was only a simple shepherd then, but who could have ever imagined that I would someday be a king? And yet, I was happier then than I am now. I did not have a palace. I certainly did not have a crown. I did not have an army. but I had peace of mind, and I had love. I believe this is what King David was saying, and the soldiers misunderstood him. They thought that he meant water. Now, I think that probably you and I sometimes have the same feeling that King David had, don't we? Especially as we grow a little older. Sometimes we look back to the days when we were younger and we ask ourselves, what went wrong? Most of us have more material possessions than we ever dreamed of. But yet, much of the time, we are lonely, restless, and lost. And so we sometimes say to ourselves, as King David did, oh, if only I could drink again from the waters of Bethlehem. If only I could go back to the days of my youth once more. But of course, we can't. Let's look at what happens in the story. 3 soldiers quietly, voluntarily, overhearing the king's wish, go and risk their lives to give him some pleasure. They did not have to do it. They were not ordered to do it. But they did it because they loved him. And this so moved King David that he could not bear to drink the water. It was sacred. It was holy in his sight. And so in gratitude to God, he made it into an offering. And so it is with us much of the time. You and I live lonely lives in which we seldom receive genuine love. There are, if we are fortunate, a few people who really, really love us. But most of the time, we use or manipulate each other. Isn't that true? And then every so often, when we least expect it, what happened to King David happens to us. Someone for some reason that we cannot fully comprehend does something for us that he or she does not have to do and gives an unexpected act of love to us. And whenever that happens, we are very grateful. We're so grateful that we want to offer it up as a libation to God. For me, there is a definition of love in this biblical story. Love is something that we do for someone that we do not have to do, that brightens their lives and gives them joy. Love is helping someone, or listening to someone, or caring for someone. Not because you have to, but just because you want to, with no ulterior motive, as the 3 soldiers did for King David. We all do what is expected for us, what our jobs call for, and our roles require. Isn't that true? But what if, for once, we did more than that? What if, for once, be it with our spouse, our partner, our children, our parents, our synagogue or our church, or our God, we did not only do the things we have to, and then perhaps, if we are fortunate, we may drink once more from the waters of Bethlehem, the waters of love, the waters that are so fresh, so healing, so rare.